Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, several Congolese soldiers seen shooting at civilians in central Kasai won't face war crimes charges, much to the disappointment of the UN. This as at least 10 more sites of mass graves are found in a region where thousands are thought to have perished in recent unrest. Also, South African authorities declare anti-apartheid activist Ahmed Timel's death a suicide. That was back in 1971, but his family never believed it. Now, 46 years on, his case will finally be reopened. And in the alleyways of Algiers' famed Casbah, there are no dustbin lorries. Instead, donkeys shift tons of rubbish every day to stop the old town from sinking. We take a closer look at their pretty tough lives. But first, a Congolese military tribunal is dropping crimes against humanity charges against 7 soldiers who appeared in a video of them firing on civilians and walking amongst at least 20 bodies in the central region of Kasai. The group will face murder charges, but the UN's criticised the decision not to prosecute for war crimes, saying that it would have sent a strong signal to other officers implicated in violence in Kasai. Almost 3,500 people are thought to have been killed in 8 months of escalating unrest. On Monday, the military announced that at least 10 more mass graves have been found in the region, taking the total number so far to 52. Our Thomas Nicolon brings us more.
The 10 new mass graves announced by the military bring to 52 the total number of such sites found in the Kasai region since August 2016 and the start of the Kamwina Nsapu insurrection. According to the army prosecutor, the Kamwina Nsapu fighters dump the bodies of the people they've killed in mass graves. But Reuters interviewed witnesses a couple of months ago, and those witnesses said that they had seen army trucks dumping bodies in mass graves too. According to the Catholic Church, more than 3,000 people have been killed in clashes between the government forces and the Kamwina Nsapu militia since August 2016, and another 1.3 millions have fled their homes. Last week, the UN approved an international investigation, but the Congolese authorities insist that the UN investigators will only be providing technical assistance.
Thomas Nicolon there for us. In other news, 9 people have been killed in a string of suicide attacks in Maiduguri, northeastern Nigeria. The bombings began late on Sunday as Muslims began a 2-day holiday to mark the end of the holy fasting month of Ramadan. 7 people are believed to have carried out the fatal raids, which targeted Maiduguri University and residential buildings just outside of the city to the northeast. It's seen as the birthplace of the Boko Haram insurgency, which has left more than 20,000 people dead. And Chad's president warned that his country may have to pull some of its troops from the regional fight back against Boko Haram if it doesn't get some financial help. Idris Deby made the statement after a weekend of fierce clashes with jihadist fighters on several islands in Lake Chad. They left at least 8 Chadian soldiers dead. He also claimed that at least 162 extremists were also killed during the operation. Now, 45 years after he fell from the 10th floor window of a police building in Johannesburg, the death of anti-apartheid campaigner Ahmed Timol is finally being examined by a court. Judges at the time ruled it to have been a suicide, but Timol's family and colleagues were convinced that he was the victim of foul play. After decades of effort, those who knew him have welcomed Monday's start of a new inquest.
In 1971, Timol, an anti-apartheid activist, fell from a 10-story window at this police headquarters. After 4 days and 19 hours in police detention, authorities declared the incident a suicide, but Timol's family never believed it.
Knowing that if you get arrested, you will get beaten up, you will get tortured. And I was convinced that in his case, he was killed. Right? He was killed. Now, whether he was pushed out of the window or whether he was forced to jump, or one can't tell. But over the years, I always said that Ahmed was killed in police custody.
Timol was arrested at a roadblock where the police found illegal pamphlets in the boot of his car. While teaching at a high school, he was working underground for the South African Communist Party and the armed wing of the African National Congress. The ANC was banned at this time, and Timol, along with many others, were in charge of setting up covert networks.
When you actually begin to track the forensic evidence, it's absolutely clear that there's no way that his body could be in such a state if he had just jumped himself.
Timol's nephew, Imtiaz Kaji, made a vow that he would uncover what happened to his uncle. When he first brought the case forward to the National Prosecuting Authority in 2002, it was turned down. Only in 2016, with the help of the Foundation for Human Rights and tireless campaigning, was an inquest finally granted.
The simple objective is to get the inquest findings reversed. It's important over 46 years after his death that the world should know that Ahmed Timol did not commit suicide, but was gruesomely killed while in the custody of the security branch. And it's important for us to preserve his honor, his legacy.
Timol is one of many unresolved cases from South Africa's apartheid past. The hope is that this case will set a precedent for the many other families searching for the truth.
Now, 2 men accused of forcing a black man into a coffin and threatening to burn him alive have had their case transferred to a higher court for trial. Farm owners Theo Jackson and Willem Oosthuizen allegedly filmed the attack, which they said happened because they wanted to teach their victim a lesson for walking on private property, but didn't mean to harm him. They face murder, assault and kidnapping charges, and their trial in Johannesburg is due to take place between the end of July and the 10th of August. Well, after being out of the country for nearly 2 months on medical leave, Nigeria's president's given his first public address to mark the end of Ramadan. Muhammadu Buhari's time in London's caused some worry back home, but in an audio broadcast played on Nigerian radio over the weekend, he greeted Muslims and Christians, wishing them well during the holiday. Despite reassurances from the government, there has been much speculation about the state of Buhari's health. The absence of any recent footage or photographs of him, the apparent weakness of his voice in the recording, has caused some concern. Well, now we head to the old town of Algiers, where donkeys are used to do all the heavy lifting when it comes to rubbish collection. The animal lift tons of trash every day, with a rather depressing end to their lives after years of service. Take a look.
In Algiers' Casbah, there are no rubbish trucks. The streets of this World Heritage Site, built 10 centuries ago, are too narrow, too steep. So the binmen use donkeys that carry up to 50 kilos of waste. The animals work 7 hours a day. They are sometimes quite stubborn.
It's difficult to work with donkeys. If you're not used to it, you can get tired really quickly. Even we get tired, although we're used to it, but it's our job.
The Casbah covers 105 hectares. In 1957, it was the heart of the Battle of Algiers during the War of Independence against France. Every day, the donkeys take out more than 2 tons of rubbish. They have been used here since the Ottomans arrived in Algiers in the 16th century. Some residents criticise this system.
The dustbin men don't clean the neighbourhood well. They don't even clean up their donkeys' excrement. Some of them grab 2 bags of rubbish and then leave. They only do half of their area, and then they're eager to get off work.
But many locals appreciate their work.
If they weren't here, the Casbah would be covered in rubbish. In the past, everyone would help to clean the neighborhood, but that's not the case anymore. If people volunteered like they used to, the Casbah would be spotless.
On average, donkeys work for 20 years. Then they are sent to the zoo, but not as residents. They become lunch for lions.
Well, that's one way of thanking somebody for a lifetime of service. That is it, though, for now for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us. Do so again. Take care.
You love watching France 24 in English.
Analysis from France 24. I'm Mark Owen. These are the main world news.
To the border with Algeria.
Huge lines since this morning to answer that question. But France 24 is also available in French.
14h à Paris, bonjour à tous, bienvenue si vous nous revenez sur France 24 à Paris
In
Direct.
Arabic.
شعبية هذا الباب القادم من أمريكا الجنوبية في ازدياد
Also coming up.
Featured on cable and satellite systems and online media in France and across the world. Tech24, presented by Julia Seeger and Danonjay Kadilke.
New technology, the latest innovation and its impact on a digital society.
Tech24 on France 24 and France24.com.